All right. Hold up, SKZ, because what you're about to hear today is not your typical idol content. This is something way deeper, way more personal, and honestly, way more powerful than any stage performance or award speech you've ever seen. We're talking about Stray Kids, the 8 young men who literally built their empire from scratch, who survived a brutal survival show, who got doubted left and right, and who now stand as one of the biggest acts on the entire planet. But here's the question that nobody ever really asks. What was the one message from their mother that silently shaped them into who they are today? Think about it. What kind of words could a mother whisper to her son before he leaves home at 15, 16 years old to chase a dream in a foreign country with no guarantee of success? What kind of sentence could be so powerful that it sticks with someone through years of trainee life, through rejection, through exhaustion, through moments where quitting seemed like the only logical option? Could a single phrase from a mother's lips really be the invisible armor that protected Bang Chan when he trained for 7 years with no debut date in sight? What did Felix's mom tell him when he had to fly across the world from Australia to Korea, barely speaking the language, knowing absolutely nobody? And what about IN, the youngest, the maknae, who left home when he was practically still a kid? What words did his mother leave him with that turned him into the resilient, grounded person we see today? Every single member on this list carries a message, a phrase, a moment with their mother that quietly, powerfully, undeniably shaped their journey. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you are not going to be the same person you were when you clicked on this. So buckle up, Stays, because this countdown starts now. Number 8, Seungmin, the mother who taught him that honesty is the only stage that never collapses. Now, before you say anything, before you go, why is Seungmin at number 8? Let me stop you right there, because being on this list at all means the message is absolutely life-changing, and Seungmin's story right here is going to set the tone for everything that comes after. So pay attention, Stays, because this one hits different when you really understand the backstory. Kim Seungmin, born September 22, 2000, the guy that most people look at and think, oh, he's the stable one, the reliable one, the one who always has it together. But do you actually know why he's like that? Do you know what was planted inside his heart long before he ever stepped into JYP Entertainment? Long before he ever sang a single note on a stage? Long before the world even knew his name? It all goes back to one woman and one message that became the invisible backbone of everything Seungmin is today. See, Seungmin didn't grow up in some dramatic movie-like backstory, and that's actually what makes his story even more powerful, because his mother wasn't reacting to a crisis. She wasn't giving him desperate words in a moment of chaos. No, she was deliberately, intentionally, calmly building a philosophy into her son's character from the ground up. And that philosophy was devastatingly simple. Always be honest, and always do things properly, because shortcuts disappear, but the truth stays forever. Now, you might hear that and think, okay, that's just basic parenting advice. But hold on, because when you put that sentence into the context of the K-pop industry, into the context of the entertainment world, into the context of a career where image is everything, where people literally train themselves to perform emotions they don't feel, where the pressure to fake it until you make it is not just a suggestion, but practically a survival strategy, that is when you realize how absolutely radical and almost rebellious that message really is. Seungmin's mother wasn't telling him to be the best singer. She wasn't telling him to win every competition. She wasn't telling him to charm every camera. She was telling him to be real, to be honest, to never cut corners even when cutting corners is the fastest way to the top. And if you've been following Stray Kids for any amount of time, you know that this message didn't just sit in Seungmin's memory like some forgotten quote on a fridge magnet. No, this message became his entire identity. Let's talk about the trainee days, because this is where it gets really interesting. Seungmin entered JYP Entertainment through the 13th JYP Open Audition in 2017, and unlike some of the other members who had been trainees for years, Seungmin's pre-debut training period was relatively shorter, which means the pressure on him was insane because he had less time to prepare, less time to polish, less time to catch up to members like Bang Chan, who had been grinding for nearly 7 years. But here's what's remarkable. Seungmin never once tried to fake his skill level. He never tried to pretend he was better than he was. He never tried to perform beyond his actual ability just to impress the evaluators. Instead, he did exactly what his mother told him. He was honest about where he was, and he did things properly, step by step, note by note, practice session by practice session. And the trainers at JYP noticed this. They noticed that this kid wasn't flashy, wasn't trying to be the center of attention, but everything he did was solid. Everything he did was genuine. And in an industry full of smoke and mirrors, that kind of raw honesty is rarer than you think. And then came the survival show, Stray Kids, the reality program on Mnet in 2017, where everything was on the line, where elimination was real, where the emotional pressure could crush a teenager's spirit like a paper cup. And if you go back and watch those episodes, really watch them, you'll notice something about Seungmin that separates him from almost every other idol survival show contestant in K-pop history. He doesn't perform sadness. He doesn't exaggerate his struggles for the camera. He doesn't create a narrative around himself to win sympathy votes. He just shows up, works hard, sings with everything he has, and lets the truth of his efforts speak for itself. And that is his mother's message in action, right there on national television. No manipulation, no shortcuts. Just pure, honest, proper effort. Fast forward to their actual debut with District 9 in March 2018 and into their career, and you see this message evolving, growing, maturing with Seungmin in ways that are honestly beautiful to witness. Have you ever watched Seungmin on variety shows? Have you ever noticed how he's one of the most straightforward members of Stray Kids? While other idols might give diplomatic, carefully crafted answers designed to please everyone, Seungmin just says what he thinks, politely, respectfully, but honestly, and the members love him for it, because in a group of 8 incredibly talented, incredibly busy, incredibly pressured young men, having someone who will always tell you the truth is not just refreshing, it's essential. There's a reason why Seungmin is often called the reliable pillar of the group by the other members. There's a reason why they trust his judgment, why they value his opinions, and it's because they absolutely know that when Seungmin says something, he means it. No sugarcoating, no hidden agenda. Just truth. And that reliability, that consistency, that unshakable honesty, that didn't come from a vocal coach. That didn't come from a dance instructor. That didn't come from years of idol training. That came from a mother who sat her son down and said, always be honest, always do things properly. And here's the part that really gets me, stays, because this message also shows up in Seungmin's relationship with the fans in the most subtle but beautiful ways. When Seungmin communicates with stays through bubble messages, through fan signs, through V-Lives, he doesn't perform a character. He doesn't put on an exaggerated persona designed to make fans feel a manufactured sense of closeness. He's just genuinely, authentically himself, sometimes playful, sometimes serious, sometimes teasing, sometimes deeply emotional, but always real. And in 2024 and 2025, when the conversation around parasocial relationships and idol authenticity became louder than ever, Seungmin's approach to fan interaction became almost like a masterclass in how to be honest with millions of people without losing yourself in the process. And that masterclass? It started in his mother's living room with 5 simple words: honesty stays, shortcuts disappear. And you know what's absolutely wild? When Seungmin once talked about what makes him most proud of himself, he didn't mention his vocal improvements, he didn't mention the sold-out stadiums, he didn't mention the Billboard achievements. He said he's proud that he's stayed true to himself, that he hasn't changed who he fundamentally is, despite everything that's happened, despite the fame, despite the pressure, despite the 1,000 different forces trying to reshape him into something he's not. And when he said that, Stays, you could practically hear his mother's voice echoing in the background, because that pride and authenticity, that commitment to being real, that refusal to take shortcuts with his own identity, that is the message living and breathing inside him every single day. So yeah, number 8 is Kim Seungmin, and his mother's message might sound simple on the surface, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful pieces of armor a person can carry into an industry designed to strip away authenticity piece by piece. And Seungmin, he walked in honest, and he's still honest. And if that doesn't move you, then just wait, because we're only getting started. But hold on, Stays, because number 7 is coming up next. And let me ask you this. What happens when the youngest member of the group, the one who left home when he was barely a teenager, carries a message from his mother that turned him into one of the most quietly resilient people in all of K-pop? Think you know who it is? Think you know what she said? Stay right here, because number 7 is going to shake you. Number 7, IN, the youngest who carried his mother's voice across every storm and never once let go. And here we are, Stays, number 7, and if you were paying attention to that teaser at the end of Seungmin's segment, you already had a feeling, you already knew we were about to talk about the maknae, the baby of the group, the one who stepped into this ruthless, unforgiving industry when most kids his age were still figuring out what clubs to join in school. We're talking about young Jong-in, born February 8, 1901, better known to the world as IN. And let me tell you right now, this story is going to hit a completely different nerve because there's something uniquely heartbreaking and simultaneously beautiful about a mother's message to her youngest child, the one she probably held a little tighter, the one she probably watched leave with a crack in her chest that she never let him see. And that message didn't just shape IN's career, it shaped his entire soul. Let's rewind, let's go back to the very beginning, because you absolutely cannot understand the weight of this message without understanding what Jong-in's world looked like before Stray Kids even existed. Jong-in grew up in Busan, South Korea, a port city far from Seoul, far from the glittering entertainment companies, far from the trainee life that he would eventually throw himself into. And he was young, Stays. He was so young when the dream started burning inside him. We're talking about a kid who auditioned for JYP Entertainment and got accepted, which meant he had to leave Busan, leave his family, leave his friends, leave everything familiar and comfortable and move to Seoul alone as a teenager to live in a trainee dormitory surrounded by strangers, training from morning until night, competing against hundreds of other kids for a debut spot that statistically most of them would never get. Now imagine you're his mother. Imagine you're standing in your home in Busan and your youngest son, your baby, is telling you he wants to leave. He wants to chase this dream that has a success rate so low it might as well be a lottery ticket. And every instinct in your body is screaming to say no, to keep him safe, to keep him close. But you also see the fire in his eyes. You see the determination that you know didn't come from nowhere because it came from you. And so instead of holding him back, instead of clipping his wings, you pull him close and you say the words that would become his armor, his compass, his foundation. No matter how hard it gets, never lose your kind heart, because the world will try to change you, but if you stay kind, you'll always find your way home. Stays, do you understand what that message really means? Do you understand the depth of what his mother was actually telling him? She wasn't saying be the best. She wasn't saying work harder than everyone else. She wasn't saying win at all costs. She was saying something far, far more profound. She was saying the world is going to try to make you someone else. The industry is going to pressure you to be harder, colder, more calculating, more guarded, but your kindness is not a weakness, it's your compass, and as long as you keep it, you'll never truly be lost. And here's what makes this absolutely remarkable. Here's what separates this from just a sweet mom moment. Jongin actually lived it every single day, through every challenge, through every hardship, through every moment where a lesser person would have let the industry harden them. Let's talk about the survival show, Stray Kids on Mnet, because this is where Jongin's story gets genuinely intense. IN was the youngest contestant, the most inexperienced, the one with the least training time, and during the show there was a real moment, a genuinely terrifying moment where elimination was on the table, where JY Park himself was evaluating these kids and deciding who would make it and who would be sent home, and IN was in the danger zone. He was one of the members whose position in the final lineup was uncertain, and can you imagine the pressure? Can you imagine being 16 years old on national television, knowing that millions of people are watching, knowing that your entire dream could be crushed in a single sentence from a man sitting behind a desk? And in that moment, in that pressure cooker of anxiety and fear, what did Jongin do? He didn't lash out, he didn't become desperate, he didn't try to play political games with the other trainees to secure his position. He stayed kind, he encouraged other members, he supported the group, he remained exactly who his mother raised him to be. And ultimately, he made it. He made it into the final lineup not because he was the most skilled at that point, but because there was something about his presence, his heart, his spirit that the group needed. And that something was the kindness his mother planted inside him. And then came the real test, Stays, because debut is not the end of the struggle. Debut was where the struggle evolves. Stray Kids debuted on March 25th, 2018 with District 9, and suddenly Jongin wasn't just a trainee anymore. He was an idol, a public figure, someone whose every move, every expression, every word was being scrutinized by fans, critics, netizens, and the entire K-pop ecosystem. And for a kid who was barely 17 at debut, that level of exposure could be absolutely crushing. But here's what happened, and this is the part that always gets me emotional. Jongin became known as the sunshine of Stray Kids, not because he was performing happiness, not because some company PR strategy told him to be the cheerful one, but because his genuine, natural, inherent kindness radiated outward like warmth from a fire, and the members felt it, the staff felt it, the fans felt it, everyone felt it. There are countless behind-the-scenes moments, backstage clips, V-Lives, and fan sign interactions where you can see IN being the member who checks on others, who notices when someone is having a hard day, who offers a smile or a word of encouragement at exactly the right moment. And every single time, you can trace that behavior back to a mother in Busan who told her son that kindness is not weakness. Kindness is a compass. And let's talk about his growth, because this is where the message gets even more powerful. Over the years, from 2018 to 2025, IN transformed vocally and artistically in ways that genuinely shocked people. His voice matured, his stage presence exploded, his confidence skyrocketed, and by the time Stray Kids were selling out stadiums worldwide, performing at Lollapalooza, breaking records left and right, IN wasn't the lacking maknae that some early critics tried to label him as. He was a force, a genuine powerhouse in his own right. But, and this is the key, he did all of that growth without losing the kindness, without letting success make him arrogant, without letting fame make him cold. And that is the miracle, Stays, because the entertainment industry is designed to erode kindness. It's designed to make you cynical, guarded, transactional, and the fact that Jongin walked through years of that pressure and came out the other side still being the warm, gentle, genuine soul that his mother raised, that's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's a message so deeply rooted in his heart that no amount of fame or pressure could pull it out. There's this moment, and stays who know, during a fan meeting where a fan told IN that his kindness made them want to be a better person, and Jongin response was so simple, so pure, so completely in character that it almost felt scripted, except it absolutely wasn't. He just smiled that smile, that genuine, full face, eyes disappearing smile, and said, "I just do what my mom taught me." And the entire room went silent for a second, because everyone felt it. Everyone felt the weight of that sentence, the history behind it, the years of struggle and perseverance and growth that those 7 words contained. His mother told him to stay kind, and he did. She told him the world would try to change him, and it tried. She told him kindness would lead him home, and it did. Except home isn't a place in Busan anymore. Home is a stage with 7 brothers who love him. Home is millions of stays around the world who see his light. Home is the person he became because he never let go of his mother's words. So that's number 7, stays. That's Yang Jong-in, IN, the maknae who carried kindness like a shield through one of the toughest industries on earth and came out shining brighter than ever. But listen, because number 6 is about to take a completely different turn, and I need you to be ready. Because what happens when a member who is known for being the most mysterious, the most hard to read, the most unexpectedly deep person in Stray Kids reveals the one thing his mother said that unlocked a side of him the world almost never gets to see? You think you know him? You think you figured him out? Trust me, stays, you haven't, and number 6 is going to prove it.
Number 6, Lino, the silent guardian who learned that true warmth doesn't need a stage to shine, it just needs a heart to hold it. Oh yes, stays, when we talk about mystery, when we talk about a guy who looks like he could read your soul but instead chose to look at a cat, we are talking about none other than Lee Min-ho, Lino, born on October 25, 1998, the dance leader, the tsundere king, the guy who behaves like a mischievous cartoon character but possesses one of the absolute deepest, most incredibly complex hearts in the entire Korean music industry. But here is the thing, how did this boy, who was once just a backup dancer standing in the shadows of global giants, find the strength to step into the spotlight and maintain his absolute, unshakable sense of self without losing his mind? It all traces back to a message, a quiet, almost whispering piece of advice from his mother that he has carried like a hidden treasure in his pocket throughout his entire turbulent journey. Let's set the scene. Lee Min-ho was not a typical JYP trainee who spent years and years drinking the company water. He was a professional dancer, someone who lived in the sweat-stained practice rooms of dance academies, backing up BTS on their massive Wings tour, feeling the heat of the stage but always from behind, always in the shadows, always as the background to someone else's dream. When he finally got the call from JYP, he was already older than the average trainee, and his training period before the survival show was insanely short, just a few months to adapt to a system that usually takes years to master. And you could see the pressure on him during those early days, the quiet intensity, the sharp eyes that seemed to analyze every single movement. But then came the unthinkable, the absolute heartbreak that stays still cry about to this day, the elimination. During the 4th episode of the 2017 survival show, J.Y. Park looked at this incredibly talented dancer and told him he was out, that his performance was lacking, that he didn't have enough time to adjust. And in that devastating moment when the cameras were rolling and his dreams were shattering, Min-ho didn't cry hysterically, he didn't make a scene, he just packed his bags, went home to his family, and faced the reality of failure. It was during this dark, uncertain period, when he was sitting in his room wondering if he should just give up on being an idol and go back to being a backup dancer, that his mother looked at him and delivered the words that changed everything. "Miho, you don't need to explain your warmth to the world, just keep it safe for the people who truly matter, because your silence is not a weakness, it's your strength." Think about that for a second, stays, let it sink in, because in an industry that demands idols to be loud, to constantly prove how much they love their fans, to smile until their cheeks ache, to perform intimacy for the cameras, Lee No's mother gave him permission to be quiet, she gave him permission to protect his energy, to not fake a personality, and to let his actions speak louder than any words ever could. And boy, did he live by those words. When he was miraculously brought back to the group in the final episodes because Bang Chan and the members fought for him, and when they finally debuted in 2018, Lee No didn't try to fit the typical idol mold, he didn't become the bubbly, talkative member, instead, he became the quiet guardian, the guy who shows his love not through sweet words, but through cooking massive meals for the members, through staying up late to guide them through choreography step by step, through quietly donating to UNICEF, through sponsoring a child in need, and through wearing earrings and rings that support animal rights and environmental causes without ever bragging about it on camera. Have you ever noticed how he acts with the members? He might tease them, he might threaten to put them in a packing box, he might pretend to be cold, but the moment a member is struggling on stage, Lee No is the first one to adjust their mic, the first one to offer a stabilizing hand, the first one to stand in front of them to shield them from the wind, and that is his mother's message alive and kicking. He doesn't explain his warmth to the world, he just gives it to the people who matter. Look at his relationship with his three cats, Sunny, Doonji, and Dory. The way he talks about them with such pure, unadulterated affection shows a side of him that is so incredibly soft, a side that he protects fiercely from the harsh glare of the public eye. In 2023, 2024, and 2025, as Stray Kids reached unprecedented heights of global fame, headlining major festivals and dominating the global charts, Lee No remained the most grounded member, the one who could walk off a stage in front of 80,000 screaming fans, go back to the hotel, and immediately start talking about what he's going to cook or checking up on his cats, because his mother's words taught him that the noise of the world is temporary, but the quiet warmth you keep inside is what keeps you alive. He didn't let the spotlight change his essence, he didn't let the pressure turn him into a manufactured product, he chose to remain Lee Min-ho, the mysterious, sharp-tongued, but deeply loving older brother of Stray Kids who proves every single day that you don't need to shout to make a difference, you just need to care deeply, act consistently, and protect the fire inside you. That is why Lee No is number 6, because his mother's message didn't just save his career during his elimination, it saved his humanity in a world that tries to turn humans into commodities. But wait, stays, because we are moving up, and number 5 is going to take us to a member whose energy is so explosive, whose presence is so loud, and whose talent is so intimidating that you would never guess he carries a mother's message that is all about vulnerability, tears, and finding strength in the moments when you feel absolutely broken. Who is this powerhouse? What did his mother tell him that allowed him to scream his heart out on stage while keeping his soul completely intact? You are not ready for number 5, so say the word and let's go. Number 5, Changbin, the powerhouse rapper who discovered that the loudest voice is only as strong as the tears it had the courage to shed. Yes, stays, prepare yourselves, because when we talk about Changbin, we are talking about a literal force of nature, the dark rapper of 3 Ratcha who can spit bars at a speed that makes your head spin, the guy who commands the stage with an aura so intense it borders on terrifying. But behind that muscular frame, behind that aggressive vocal delivery, and behind that intimidating beast persona lies one of the most emotionally intelligent, deeply sensitive, and beautifully vulnerable souls in the entire industry. And the secret behind this incredible balance is a profound message his mother gave him when he was standing at the crossroads of his life. Let's dial back the clock to the days before Changbin became the legendary Spurb. He grew up in a comfortable household, and his parents, particularly his father, had high academic expectations for him, wanting him to pursue a stable, conventional career path, but Changbin's heart was already beating to the rhythm of hip-hop, and when he first told his parents that he wanted to become a rapper, he faced skepticism, not out of malice, but out of a parent's natural fear of the volatile, cutthroat nature of the entertainment world. His mother, however, watched him closely. She saw the late nights he spent writing lyrics, she heard the raw emotion in his voice when he practiced in his room, and she realized that this wasn't a passing phase, this was his life's calling. When he finally got accepted into JYP Entertainment and was preparing to throw himself into the brutal trainee grind, his mother sat him down for a quiet conversation, looking past the tough exterior he was already trying to build to survive. And she gave him a piece of advice that would save his soul. Changbin, don't build a fortress around your heart just to look strong to the world. It is okay to cry, it is okay to be weak, because the tears you shed today are the water that will grow your wings tomorrow, and true strength is being brave enough to show your soft heart. Now, think about this, stays, because this is the absolute antithesis of what society tells young men, especially in the hip-hop scene, where masculinity is often defined by stoicism, hardness, and a refusal to show any sign of vulnerability. But Changbin's mother did the exact opposite. She gave him a license to feel, a license to cry, and she taught him that vulnerability is not a flaw, it is a superpower. And if you look at Changbin's career, you can see how this message transformed him from just another fast rapper into a legendary producer and songwriter who writes the music that keeps millions of stays alive. When you listen to the lyrics he writes for Stray Kids, tracks like Mirror, Streetlight, or Elevator, you aren't just hearing cool rhymes, you are hearing a young man confessing his deepest fears, his anxiety, his moments of absolute loneliness, and his struggle with self-doubt, and the only reason he is able to put those raw, bleeding emotions into his music is because his mother taught him that it is okay to be vulnerable. Think about Streetlight, a song that Changbin wrote about the feeling of having to shine brightly for others while standing alone in the dark, unable to show your own pain. That song is a direct reflection of his struggle to balance his role as the strong, reliable member of the group with his own internal battles, and the act of releasing that song was him choosing to follow his mother's advice to not hide his soft heart. And it's not just in his music, stays, it's in how he lives his life with his members every single day. Changbin is the undisputed emotional anchor of Stray Kids. He is the guy the members go to when they are crying, when they are overwhelmed, when they feel like the weight of the world is too heavy to carry. Because they know that Changbin will never judge them for being weak, they know he will cry with them, hold them, and remind them that their tears are okay, because that is exactly what his mother did for him. Have you ever noticed how he acts on variety shows and behind the scenes? He is built like a tank, but he is also the king of Egyo, the one who happily makes cute faces, who lets the members tease him, who laughs the loudest, and who has no problem being the butt of the joke just to bring a smile to someone else's face, showing that he has absolutely no fragile ego to protect because his mother's words freed him from the need to constantly look tough. From their debut in 2018 to their historic achievements in 2024 and 2025, where Stray Kids dominated global charts, achieved multiple Billboard #1s, and performed on the biggest stages in the world, Changbin never lost that emotional depth. He remained the guy who could deliver a verse with the power of a sledgehammer and then turn around and write a song that feels like a warm hug for anyone who is hurting. His mother's message gave him the freedom to be human in an industry that often demands idols to be perfect, plastic dolls, and because he embraced that freedom, he became a beacon of light for millions of fans who are also struggling with their own vulnerabilities. So that is number 5, Seo Changbin, the powerhouse who proved to the world that the loudest voice on stage is only as powerful as the quiet, emotional truth behind it. But hold on to your seats, stays, because number 4 is coming up, and we are moving to a member whose visual beauty is so blinding, whose dance moves are so mesmerizing, and whose aura is so ethereal that he looks like he was carved out of starlight, but who carries a mother's message that is all about surviving the storm of public opinion and keeping your eyes on the only opinion that actually matters. Who is this artistic genius? What did his mother tell him when the world was trying to tear him down? You are absolutely not ready for the emotional roller coaster of number 4, so say the word and let's get into it. Number 4, Hyunjin, the prince of the stage who transformed his pain into art, and proved that no storm can ever wash away the colors of a true artist's soul. Yes, stays, take a deep breath, because when we talk about Hwang Hyunjin, born on March 20, 2000, we are stepping into the world of a true artist, a member whose stage presence is so utterly hypnotic that he has been called the Prince of K-Pop, a dancer whose movements are so fluid and emotionally charged that they tell entire stories without a single word being spoken. But behind the dazzling visuals, the viral fan cams, and the global fashion campaigns with brands like Versace, there lies a young man who has had to walk through some of the darkest, most intense storms of public scrutiny and self-doubt that any young artist could ever face. How did he survive? How did he keep his heart from turning cold, and how did he return to the stage not just intact, but stronger, more creative, and more beautiful than ever before? It all comes down to a message, a lifeline of wisdom thrown to him by his mother during a time when the entire world felt like a tempest trying to tear him apart. Let's look at the background first. Hyunjin did not start as a naturally gifted dancer. In fact, when he was street cast by JYP Entertainment, he was told by fellow trainees that he only made it because of his face, a comment that deeply wounded him but also sparked an obsessive, relentless fire inside him. He refused to be just a visual, practicing until his feet bled, staying in the dance studios until the sun came up, pushing his body to the absolute limit until he earned his place as the main dancer of Stray Kids, showing that his determination was unmatched. But the real test of his spirit didn't come from the practice rooms. It came in 2021, when he had to undergo a painful, agonizing hiatus due to public controversies and allegations, a period where he was suddenly separated from his members, from the stage, and from the fans who loved him, standing completely exposed to the harsh, unforgiving judgment of the internet. During those long, quiet months of isolation, when the silence was deafening and the weight of the world's criticism felt like a crushing anchor, his mother looked at him and delivered the words that saved his soul. Hwang Hyunjin, do not let the storms of the world drown out the colors of your own soul. Stay true to your art and hold your head high, because the wind will eventually blow over, but the masterpiece you are building inside will remain forever. Think about the profound impact of those words, stays, because his mother didn't tell him to fight the noise, she didn't tell him to argue with the storm, she told him to look inward, to focus on his own internal canvas, and to channel his pain, his sadness, and his regret into something beautiful, and that is exactly what Hyunjin did. He picked up a paintbrush, he bought canvases, and he began to paint, turning his apartment into a sanctuary of color and emotion, pouring all his unspoken feelings, his tears, and his hopes onto the canvas, producing artwork that was so incredibly raw and moving that when he finally shared it with the world, fans were left speechless by the depth of his talent. He also wrote music, including the heart-wrenching song Little Star dedicated to his childhood dog, channeling his grief and love into a melody that brought comfort to millions of people. When he finally returned to Stray Kids, the change in him was palpable. He was no longer just a boy trying to prove his worth through perfect choreography. He was a mature artist who danced with a raw, dramatic intensity that felt like he was releasing years of bottled-up emotion on stage, culminating in his iconic Artist of the Month performance that cemented his status as one of the greatest dancers of his generation. Have you ever watched him in interviews or during his painting vlogs? There is a quiet, contemplative peace about him now, a sense of grounding that comes from knowing that his worth is not determined by the fluctuating opinions of the internet, but by the authenticity of his art and the love of the people who truly know him. In 2024 and 2025, as Stray Kids conquered global music festivals like BST Hyde Park and headlined massive stadium tours, Hyunjin's mother's message continued to guide him, reminding him to stay true to his artistic vision, to keep painting, to keep dancing with his heart, and to never let the glitter of fame blind him to the raw beauty of creation. He is the visual who became an artist, the dancer who became a storyteller, and the son who kept his soul intact because his mother gave him the paintbrush to survive the storm. That is why Hyunjin stands at number 4, a testament to the power of art, resilience, and a mother's unshakable belief in her son's inner light. But hold on, stays, because number 3 is right around the corner, and we are stepping into the world of a member whose mind is a constant maze of genius, whose musical creativity is almost frightening, but who has openly struggled with intense anxiety and the pressure of being the mastermind behind some of the group's biggest hits. What did his mother tell him to keep his racing mind calm when the pressure to deliver became too much to bear? Think you know this genius writer? Get ready, because number 3 is going to touch your soul. Number 3, Han, the genius all-rounder who fought a silent war against his own mind, and learned that you don't have to conquer the ocean to survive the storm. Oh yes, stays, prepare yourselves, because when we talk about Han Ji-sung, Han, born on September 14, 2000, we are stepping into the mind of a literal musical prodigy, a JYP ace who can rap at light speed, sing high notes that rival the best main vocalists in the industry, dance with absolute power, and write songs in under 2 hours that become global masterpieces. But behind this blinding curtain of raw, unmatched genius lies a boy who has fought a silent, exhausting battle against his own mind, struggling with severe social anxiety and the terrifying weight of public expectations. How does a young boy who grew up in Malaysia, far from the pressure cooker of Seoul, manage to survive the suffocating spotlight of global stardom while battling an anxiety disorder that sometimes makes it hard to even breathe in a crowded room? It all goes back to a message, a lifeline of pure, unconditional maternal love that his mother gave him to navigate the chaotic labyrinth of his own thoughts. Let's look at the history. Han Ji-sung was a wanderer. He spent his formative years studying in Malaysia, living a relatively free, relaxed life, but the burning passion for music drew him back to South Korea, where he made a deal with his parents that if he didn't get accepted into an entertainment agency within a year, he would pack his bags, return to Malaysia, and focus on his studies. He went to a JYP audition simply to support his friend, but fate had other plans, and JYP saw the spark of genius in this young boy, throwing him into the intense trainee system where he eventually became part of 3 Racha, the creative core of Stray Kids. However, the transition from a free-spirited boy in Malaysia to a highly scrutinized trainee and eventual global superstar took a heavy toll on his mental health, leading to moments where the pressure became so absolute that he experienced panic attacks and had to temporarily step away from group activities and public schedules to protect his mind. It was during these times of deep vulnerability, when Ji-sung felt like an alien stranded on a foreign planet, a feeling he beautifully captured in his self-produced solo track Alien, that his mother held him close and whispered the words that would become his ultimate sanctuary. Han Ji-sung, your mind is a beautiful but wild ocean. So do not try to control every single wave of anxiety, just breathe, ride the storm, and remember that you are already enough exactly as you are, even when the music stops playing. Let those words sink in, stays, because in a world that constantly demands more hits, more energy, more perfection, his mother gave him the most precious gift of all, the permission to just breathe and be human. This message completely transformed how Han viewed his anxiety. Instead of fighting his emotions or feeling ashamed of his struggles, he began to channel them directly into his music, writing tracks like Close and Wish that speak directly to the hearts of anyone who has ever felt overwhelmed by the noise of the world. Have you ever watched him during a performance? The moment he steps on stage, he transforms into an absolute beast, commanding the crowd with a confidence that seems completely bulletproof. But the moment the stage lights go down, you can see him leaning on the members, seeking comfort in their presence, proving that his strength doesn't come from being fearless, but from his willingness to face his fears day after day. The members of Stray Kids, especially his soulmate Changbin and leader Bang Chan, understand this deeply. They protect him fiercely, stepping in to shield him during public appearances when his anxiety flares up, creating a safe space where he can be himself without judgment. In 2024 and 2025, as Stray Kids reached the absolute pinnacle of global success, selling out stadium tours and breaking records, Han continued to use his mother's wisdom as his anchor, learning to balance his explosive stage persona with his need for quiet, introspective moments. He proved to the world that having anxiety does not mean you cannot achieve your dreams, it just means you have to learn to navigate the waves with patience and self-compassion, guided by the love of a mother who reminded him that his value is not tied to his achievements, but to his existence. That is why Han Ji-sung stands at number 3, a brilliant mind, a sensitive soul, and a son who continues to write the soundtrack of his life with the ink of honesty and the paper of resilience. But keep your eyes open, stays, because number 2 is fast approaching, and we are moving to a member whose journey is a literal cinematic movie of survival, a boy who had to leave his entire life behind in Australia, fly to Korea with nothing but a dream, face elimination because of a language barrier, and carry a mother's message that gave him the strength to believe that even when the light disappears, the sun will always rise again. Who is this angel with the deep voice and the golden heart? What did his mother tell him that kept him walking when he was completely lost? Get ready, because number 2 is going to break you. Number 2, Felix, the angel of sunshine who crossed oceans and survived elimination, and taught us that staying soft is the ultimate act of bravery. Oh yes, stays, prepare your tissues because we are stepping into the heart of a story that feels like it was written by a screenwriter looking to make an entire stadium cry. We are talking about Felix, Lee Young-bok, born on September 15, 2000, in Sydney, Australia, the angel with the freckles that look like stars scattered across his face, the boy whose speaking voice is a sweet, gentle whisper but whose singing and rapping voice is a deep, thunderous cave-like resonance that literally shakes the ground beneath your feet. But behind the global fame, the fashion shows, the center parts in legendary choreographies, and the millions of fans screaming his name, lies a boy who had to leave everything he knew behind, cross an ocean alone, and face the absolute worst nightmare of rejection before he ever got to see his dream come true. Imagine being a teenager in Sydney, living a comfortable, peaceful life with your family, and suddenly deciding to pack a single suitcase, leave your mother, your father, your sisters, and your friends, and fly to South Korea, a country where you barely speak the language, where you don't understand the cultural nuances, and where you are thrown into a trainee system that is essentially a 24-hour competition. That was Felix's reality in 2017, and the struggle was visible from day one, as he struggled to understand the instructions of the trainers, spent his nights translating Korean lyrics word by word, and battled a crippling homesickness that made him feel utterly isolated in a crowded city. But the absolute breaking point came in episode 8 of the Stray Kids survival show, a moment that remains one of the most devastating, emotionally raw scenes in K-pop history, when J.Y. Park looked at Felix and eliminated him, citing his lack of Korean language skills and his inability to fully integrate into the group's performance. In that moment, when the world collapsed around him, when leader Bang Chan hugged him crying hysterically and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not gonna leave you," Felix was lost in a dark abyss of failure, feeling like he had let everyone down, especially his mother who had watched him fly away to the other side of the world. It was during this period of absolute darkness, when he was preparing to go back to Australia with a broken heart, that his mother's voice became his guiding light, delivering a message that would give him the strength to stay in Korea, keep practicing in the dark, and eventually make one of the most triumphant returns in music history. Lee Young-bok, you were born to bring light to this world, so do not let the coldness of a foreign land or the fear of failure dim your sunshine. Keep sharing your warmth with others, and you will always find the strength to rise again. Let those words wash over you, stays, because his mother didn't tell him to become tougher, she didn't tell him to match the coldness of the industry, she told him to double down on his warmth, to keep being the sweet, loving boy she raised, and to trust that his light would guide him through the dark. Armed with this message, Felix didn't pack his bags for Sydney. Instead, he stayed in Seoul, practicing his pronunciation until his jaw was sore, practicing his dance moves until his clothes were soaked in sweat, and when Bang Chan and the members fought to bring him back for the final live show, Felix stepped onto that stage and delivered a performance so powerful, so filled with raw emotion and determination, that there was absolutely no doubt he belonged in Stray Kids. Since their debut in 2018, Felix has lived his mother's message in the most beautiful, visible ways imaginable, becoming the absolute personification of warmth and charity in the industry. While most idols spend their rare vacation days resting or traveling for leisure, Felix shocked the world in 2024 by quietly flying to Laos to volunteer with UNICEF, wearing a simple blue volunteer t-shirt, sleeping in basic accommodations, feeding children, and helping to build clean water facilities, showing a level of genuine altruism that is incredibly rare for a global superstar. He became the youngest member of the UNICEF Honors Club, donating over 100 million won to help children in need, and he is famous for baking batches of chocolate brownies for staff members, backup dancers, and fellow idols at music shows, showing love through simple, sweet actions that require no explanation. In 2024 and 2025, as Stray Kids dominated global charts, achieved historic milestones on Billboard, and became icons of the fashion world, Felix remained the same humble, freckled angel who thanks stays with tears in his eyes, who speaks to his fans with a gentleness that feels like a warm hug, and who carries his mother's son inside his heart wherever he goes. He is the boy who survived elimination, crossed the world, and conquered the industry not by becoming harder, but by staying soft, proving that a gentle heart is the ultimate weapon against the coldness of the world. That is why Felix stands at number 2, a beautiful soul whose light shines brighter than any spotlight. But now, stays, we have reached the final step, the absolute peak of this countdown, and we are looking at number 1, the leader, the father figure, the guy who spent 7 years in the dark, watching his friends debut while he was left behind, carrying a mother's message that gave him the strength to build a family from scratch and protect them with his life. Who is this legendary leader? What did his mother tell him that allowed him to carry the weight of 7 other lives on his shoulders without ever breaking? Brace yourselves, because number 1 is the ultimate truth you need to know. Number 1, Bang Chan, the legendary leader who built a brotherhood from scratch, and learned that the strongest shield is the one you share with your family. Here we are, stays, the absolute pinnacle of our countdown, the moment you have all been waiting for, and there was never any doubt about who would occupy this spot, because when we talk about the foundation, the shield, the heart, and the soul of Stray Kids, we are talking about none other than Christopher Bang Chan, born on October 3, 1997, the leader who didn't just inherit a group from an entertainment agency, but handpicked every single member with his own hands to build a brotherhood that would change the world. Yet behind this legendary leadership, the endless hours in the producing studio, and the unshakable smile he presents to the cameras, lies a man who spent 7 long years in the dark trainee basement, watching his closest friends debut while he was left behind, carrying a weight of responsibility so heavy that it would have crushed almost anyone else. Let's dial back the clock to 2010, when a 13-year-old boy from Sydney, Australia, passed a JYP audition and moved to South Korea all by himself, leaving behind his parents and his younger siblings to chase a dream that was completely abstract, entering a world of endless evaluations, strict schedules, and constant uncertainty where he had to grow up overnight. For 7 years, from 2010 to 2017, Bang Chan trained alongside members of GOT7, Day 6, and Twice, watching them climb to stardom while he remained in the shadow of the basement, wondering if his time would ever come, battling the silent terror of being forgotten, and yet, he never gave up. He kept refining his producing skills, kept practicing his vocals, and kept dancing until his body was bruised. When JYP finally gave him the green light to debut, they didn't just assign him a group, they gave him the unprecedented freedom to choose his own members, and Chan, guided by an incredible instinct for talent and character, gathered Woojin, Lee No, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and I.N, creating not just a musical group, but a real family that would stand together through thick and thin. But being the leader of a self-produced group meant that the entire success or failure of Stray Kids rested on his shoulders. He was the one writing the songs, arranging the beats, organizing the concepts, communicating with the executives, and taking the blame whenever things went wrong, often sleeping only 2 or 3 hours a night in the studio, surviving on caffeine and sheer willpower. It was during these intense years, when he was carrying the hopes, dreams, and futures of 7 other young boys while dealing with his own exhaustion, that his mother delivered the message that would save him from burning out. A message that became the ultimate anchor for his leadership. Christopher, you do not have to carry the entire weight of this group alone on your shoulders. A true leader is not someone who never shows weakness, but someone who knows how to trust and lean on the family he has built, so let them carry you when your own wings get too tired to fly. Let those words resonate in your heart, stays, because they represent the absolute turning point in Chan's approach to leadership, shifting him from a leader who felt he had to protect everyone by hiding his own pain, to a leader who realized that vulnerability is a bridge that connects him to his brothers. If you look at the evolution of Stray Kids from their debut in 2018 to their global dominance in 2024 and 2025, you can see how this message shaped the entire group dynamic. Chan became a leader who wasn't afraid to cry in front of his members, who openly admitted when he was tired, and who stepped back to let the other members shine, creating an environment of mutual trust and respect that is almost non-existent in the highly competitive K-pop landscape. This message also birthed Chan's Room, his weekly live broadcast that ran for over 200 episodes, where he sat in front of a camera late at night, played music, gave warm hugs to the screen, and listened to the worries of millions of fans. acting as a global therapist and older brother to Stays around the world, proving that the warmth his mother gave him was something he wanted to share with the entire universe. Even when the company made the decision to end the weekly broadcasts, the impact of his words and his open heart remained etched in the souls of fans worldwide, showing that his leadership extended far beyond the boundaries of his group. In 2024 and 2025, as Stray Kids headlined massive stadiums, broke global sales records, and stood at the absolute peak of the music industry, Bang Chan continued to credit his members and his fans for his strength, never taking the spotlight for himself, always standing at the edge of the stage during awards speeches to watch his brothers speak, and carrying his mother's wisdom as his ultimate guide. He is the leader who stayed in the dark for 7 years so he could become the light that guides 7 other lives, the son who stayed humble in the face of global success, and the brother who learned that he never has to walk alone because the family he built will always be there to hold him up. That is why Bang Chan is number 1, the ultimate leader, the ultimate brother, and the living proof of a mother's message that true strength is found in trust, family, and the courage to lean on the ones you love.